Good morning, welcome. It's a bright Monday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Indeed, bright and cool Monday morning.
Yeah,
we're
windy
grateful.
too.
From Lagos, good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And am I glad to have company this beautiful, cold, wet, rainy Monday morning here in Abuja. At least there's someone to keep the studio warm with me.
You know, that weather kind of slows things down. You have no idea. Oh, boy. Good morning, everybody. Good to be here. I'm Chamberlain, so.
Well, just so you know, Malcolm, he's on loan until the transfer window closes. But in the meantime, there's something. But there's something that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, and that's the issue of fuel prices. I don't know. I'm still rather confused. Maybe
It seems the transfer window doesn't close on that one.
Wait, it's not closing yet because the fuel pricing has been transferred, it would seem, from PPPRA to the medium and downstream sector regulation, authority and all of that. Whether or not they are able to, they do also fix prices is another thing that we're yet to see, because in Lagos, officially from what we hear, it's supposed to be 165 naira, right? But
no, where are you, Ayo?
Officially.
179 naira now.
Officially.
Okay.
It was supposed to be 165. But now we have 170, 179, depending on where you buy the fuel from. And of course, we went around the country. If you missed that report, you may still catch it up in one of our reports, one of our news bulletins in the course of the day. Various parts of the country have various prices depending on whoever or whatever. Is the subsidy regime still in force? If it is the official price now raised from 165 naira to whatever? It's a question we need to ask.
So many questions that we need to ask, Ayo, particularly because I wonder if you observed that this new price regime happened just...
Is there a new price regime?
Yes, 179 naira per litre. Happened just as the old NNPC was transiting to becoming the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited. So the question, on the lips of most would be, who did the upward review of the pricing? Was it government? Was it the old PPPRA, or was it the Nigeria Midstream Regulatory Agency? But it seems as if this is a silent agreement, if you now go by the report of our correspondent, Olu Phillips, of the marketers, the major marketers, or perhaps the independent marketers now. This is what they're comfortable with because of the current realities of fuel importation and, transportation across the country. As fuel is moving down, and then the operations, the current realities of the operations, they say the price of diesel has gone up, and they spend 16,000 naira per day or something to purchase fuel, to purchase diesel to run their operations. So these are the realities that they find themselves, in. Add to that the international oil crisis occasioned by the attack on Ukraine by Russia. So these are some of the things, affecting the current price of fuel and the upward review. But then again, government says we haven't officially deregulated. So what happens when official deregulation occurs? What would now be the new price regime, across the country? We are even, lucky to be able to buy at 179 naira per litre. Some people in the north, far north, haven't bought fuel for nothing less than 250 naira per litre 3 months ago, not just even now.
Well, I don't know, Malcolm, what's the situation in Abuja? Maybe you want to help us, because I know Chamberlain is still a JJC in the city right now.
Is that right?
Shots fired, right? Shots fired. I'll wait patiently.
But I'm happy to take this load anyway. I mean, I will deal with the transfer window later. Just let me help. Let's deal with who's on loan right now. talking about the situation of petrol in Abuja, well, you know that for a long time it was on and off. I mean, there was a time you guys came visited. Even during the primaries of the political parties here in Abuja, there were still few queues going, happening at the stations. You'll see it. It's like now you see it, now you don't. It was on and off. But it was more on than it was off. Just when you think that it was being handled, then the next minute they were back in full force. So it would seem that now that it's like water is finding its level with this 10 naira, is it some approval for transport given by the federal government, and the fact that they've just taken their gaze off it for a while, it does look like, oh, they're allowed to do what they want to do with that, with bridging. Because what I think has happened, and this is my own conjecture, the NNPC and co can tell us what is happening here. But what I think has happened is that with the cost of transport to different parts of the country, it will cost different transporters different amounts of money to be able to truck products from Lagos, where it is imported, to different parts of the country. Yeah. And I think that since they have now scrapped the equalization fund, petroleum equalization fund, I do not know. I know that has been collapsed into the midstream and downstream regulatory agency. But whether they're still being given that bridging fund is what I'm not certain of. So they've had to, maybe they found ways, ingenious ways, to be able to find how to bridge the transport gap, and you know, they've incorporated it into the cost of petrol, and maybe also the cost of doing business in terms of the increasing cost of diesel, which will also affect their own businesses as well. And it will seem that, you know, as Bukola, beg your pardon, rightly pointed out, in many parts of the country, petrol has not been sold at the official rate for many, many months. In fact, as I traveled to Owerri some time ago, and one of the things that we noticed was, even though there were queues in Abuja at the time, there were no queues in Owerri. Most of the filling stations were open. They were selling at the prices they liked, and you know, people just drove in and bought. And people have said this has been the situation since forever. That's how it's been in the southeast. So at that point, I started to ask myself, are we in Lagos and Abuja spoiled? Or are these the only parts of Nigeria that constitute the country? That's certainly not a fair way to deal. So I think that if there has been some, gentlemanly agreement, I think that the NNPC should not be shy. They should not run away from what is a fact. If it's no longer under your control to be able to monitor prices in different parts of the country and say that this is your official rate, which is realistic for everybody, then don't pretend that it is. Because what it makes you look like is that you are a weak regulatory agency, or that you do not exist at all. I think that it is very important that they address this issue headlong. If they say that this is now the official price, but based on transport, this is what the different, or different marketers are allowed to charge. Because I think that eventually competition will set in. If you're able to truck in your own more efficiently than company B is able to truck in its own to different parts of the country, what we should see is, with prices operating within a certain band and people willing to go to different stations to be able to buy. That is why we also talk about the big elephant in the room, subsidy, and what it is costing us and how much petrol we're actually consuming in Nigeria. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that this cost of transport is totally out of the hands of NNPC, and they're not trying to fake that it is within their purview anymore. As long as people are getting petrol to buy and they're not, crying out, in pain, I think that they're willing to let the situation be. But I think that, beyond that, they need to be able to own up and say that this is what has happened to the price of petrol in different parts of the country.
That right there is the pattern that we've seen over the years. If you look at the last 2, 3, 4 times that the price of petrol, there's been that argument and then it goes up, they usually tell us, look, is it not better for it to be available? And then you buy at a certain price. So sometimes you just wonder what all of this is about, because even the PEF, which has metamorphosed now, it's also a type of subsidy. So all of that keeps going on, and then different states buying at different prices, which we need to keep asking ourselves, look, aren't we papering over cracks if we actually say we're really subsidizing this product? Because if those other states are buying at way higher than Lagos and Abuja, can we still go ahead and say that, well, yes, it's been subsidized in those areas, or the impact is being felt in those cities? Because, I mean...
Chimale, I believe it will be a lot more. If there was no subsidy, I mean, if we're to take a cue from the price of diesel, I believe that fuel would not be 250 naira. 250 naira would be, you know, child's play with...
But what about the argument they told us that diesel is deregulated, and that is why, at that time, and that is why you could get stability, and then it's not sky high. But look at the last 6 months. What was it that regulated the price of diesel? Do we see any form of, you know, system or platform that thought, no, you can't just hike that price just like that? In the meantime, NNPC was still the sole importer. So if they are still the sole importer, how come that different, or Ipman and different depots were selling at different prices? Why were they finding their way into private depot, whereas NNPC was the sole importer till today? So there are several questions, and then when you speak about, we can't even know how much exactly are we consuming. So there are several questions, and sometimes, you know, we look at this and say, are we ever going to get stability in you know, when it comes to pricing of petroleum products? So I guess it's an argument that will keep going on, because when marketers feel, look, we're not making profit, the prices will go up. So what can government do about that? I guess it's a big question that will keep going on time and again. But, well, that said, guys, of course, you can always weigh in. Let's know what you think about this matter if you're not tired of talking about it already. But I wonder if you can be, because you keep spending your money to buy it. So can you ever be tired of talking about it? I'm not sure. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the dailies in a moment. Welcome back. Let's run you through some of the dailies, and we'll start with Daily Trust today. 140 days after, FG loses 3 billion naira on halted Kaduna-Abuja train service. Look at the riders have got here. I closed my shop, laid off staff, restaurateur. Clear terrorist cells to ease resumption, security experts. How disruption will affect loan repayment. So that's a big lead on the front page of Daily Trust here today. So you might wonder, how did they arrive at 3 billion naira loss after 140 days? Well, there's some sort of an explanation pictorially on the front page of Daily Trust as well, beneath that lead story. And they say total lost in 140 days, 3.02 billion naira. Then number of daily trips, it's eight daily trips. And then they also highlight number of passengers per trip is between 900 to 1,000. So, but also different classes of tickets, which they tabulate here. Economic ticket goes for 2,800 naira and 3,000 naira. So that's the band right there. And then the VIP ticket is 6,000 naira. So the breakdown of ticket sales: minimum revenue per trip 2.7 trillion, total revenue in 8 trips 21.6 trillion, and total revenue in 1 week.
Are you sure you're not reading that wrong? I think that's 27 million and then 216 million. Huh?
27? I thought I said 2.7.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what's here though.
27 million naira.
Okay, and then you see 21.6. That's total revenue in 8 trips. So it's the way they
I think they have some
they wrote it
typo
wrong, right?
with dots happening around there. But
Okay, so there you go. That's this is what's the official position in terms of going by what is supposed to be, but we all know that.
Yeah, when you look at all the businesses that have sprung up as a result. So, for instance, when you get to Rigasa, at least Rigasa many years ago is not Rigasa today. I mean, supermarkets, there's a whole beehive of activities that have sprung up as a result of the train station now being there. And now that the train has not been working for, at least 140 days, over 3 months now.
And it's not about to start anyway.
Yes, that will certainly have its own economic impact on the businesses, that are stationed in those places. So,
wow. And this is just Kaduna-Abuja train service.
Yeah.
Because there are other services across the country which has also stopped, as the NRC did announce, which they, if I remember properly, said, well, they will not continue those services unless all of those kidnapped, for this particular one now, are released. But hopefully we'll get a little more explanation and rationale behind that as we progress. But that is Daily Trust today.
Okay, well, I really want to take this one. It appears juicy. It's scandalous, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
and really, I don't know. I think that people would really like to feast on that paper. But I'm just going to go right ahead and take the Abuja Inquirer, because we are right here in the Federal Capital Territory, and you have to know what's happening in our city. So take a look at this. 29 billion naira ground rent. FCTA lists 430 title holders for prosecution. 5 law firms contracted. Court process starts August ending. So if you're owing ground rent here in Abuja, get ready. The FCTA is coming after you. And guess what, Chamberlain? You know where the main culprits live?
Where?
In the highbrow places, in Maitama, in Asokoro. And look how much they're owing, 29 billion naira. That's a lot of money.
So hopefully, cost of litigation will be a piece of cake compared to how much they're owing. So they should be able to settle out of court eventually, I reckon.
Well, that's hopefully should be one of the things that should happen. But they're certainly not just, taking this line low. They want to be able to get their money. So let's see how far that goes. You also have this. Northwest leads as Nigeria's kidnappers' haven. Kaduna tops in kidnapping, casualty, ransom payment. Perhaps there's some investigation. Details page 3 of the paper for you. Uni Abuja Teaching Hospital. No outbreak of Marburg virus in our facility. So maybe there's been some rumor going on. There's been some clarification now by the university that is not from the university. You also have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate. AMAC, Senior Citizens Demand Probe of Tribunal Judges.
Whoa.
Page 5. I don't know what that story is about, but you might want to flip to page 5 to know why it is the senior citizens are demanding the probe of tribunal judges. Nigeria's broadband penetration hits 44.5%. There's a page 11 read for you, just in case you're following up on that. FCTA laments poor funding of education, seeks alternatives. It's a page 6 read for you. Let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
About juicy, Markwe, how's the front page of This Nigeria? It is very interesting what we have there. Perhaps another call for digitization, if I dare say. Missing 17.128 billion naira. Missing is in inverted comma. Termites ate up the vouchers, says NSITF. Well, for the records, NSITF is Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund. Just, to make it clear. And the writer says, no documents to back up monies transferred to untraceable individuals, companies' accounts, according to Senate. Bukola, why are you laughing?
Well, it's not a snake this time, man, that swallowed the money. It's termites.
No, it's not.
Termites ate up the vouchers, rather, yeah.
Just so, but it's also curious what the Senate says. No documents to back up monies transferred to untraceable individuals and companies' accounts. And termites ate up all of the vouchers. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Well, still talking about money, right under the picture on the front page, one of the stories there, mismanagement of $500 million power assets. Senate summons NDPHC boss. What does that mean? The details you'll find on page 21 of the paper this morning, and several other stories that you will find quite interesting. How's the Nigerian newspaper, this Nigerian newspaper today?
Speaking of interesting, the Nigerian News Direct has one interesting one this morning. It doesn't have to do with mismanagement anyway. It talks about profit. And the big story goes thus. Q1, that's Q1 reports, despite insecurity, banks rake billions as profit as manufacturers, farmers shut operations. It will be interesting to investigate the business template of banks, you know, amid rising inflation, high cost of living, high cost of running operations. The banks are raking in billions of naira as profit. You might want to check up the business template of the banks who are in the lead.
Simply because money flies around, whether there is business or not. There is money in circulation. That's why it's called currency.
Currency.
Always flowing.
Always flowing. Well,
And it flows through the banks mostly.
and not everybody has the technical or the business know-how of banking.
You've advised just to check out their business template.
The business template.
Maybe
Okay.
adopt it too.
Oh, all right. Let's look at other stories. Right below that one, that big story, you'll find Serap threatens to sue INEC over 7 million Nigerians yet to complete voter registration. That call has been ongoing for quite some time now from different quarters, not just Serap, for INEC to reconsider and allow many more Nigerians register so that millions would not be disenfranchised. Let's take a look at two more stories just before we exit Nigerian News Direct. Go above the nameplate now for the check. You find there, Oshun under Oyetola, not a spendthrift. Government replies, ex-finance commissioner says it never paid a month's salary 4 times as he did while in office. Looks like the hoopla over the outcome of the Osun governorship election is yet to settle. There'll be more coming from that state in the coming days, particularly as it approaches inauguration, the handover of power. And lastly, IYD, Kwara government supports 100 youth with 1 million naira grant each. A good time to be a Kwara youth currently. That's the Nigerian News Direct for you this morning.
Look at leadership newspaper next. I tell you, some of these missing mismanagement of funds here and there can be so depressing, especially when you look at the reasons they adduce to all of this. But this kicker here is on watertight security directive. The lead story, experts ask IGP to go beyond empty orders, memo disclosure. And then the writer, the first of which says, IGP acted on intelligence reports, police authorities, operatives to embark on stop and search, raids, show of force. Well, I don't think that's new. That's always been going on. Deployment will create public confidence, says ex-CP Alobi. Use high tech to fight criminal elements, PFN. So, and when you see headlines like termites 8 vouchers of our 17.1 billion naira spending, NSITF tells Senate, you just wonder, even the person who even said it when he was preparing to appear before the Senate with this kind of narrative, goodness. So what then happens to those who are supposed beneficiaries of, those who depend on this?
Do you remember the quarrel once about the appointment of is it a DJ into the NSITF? I think a former Labour leader, and also, do you remember between him and the current Labour minister? And there was controversy about whether the president appointed or not. But maybe the amounts we're mentioning now will say or point to why that place is jealously guarded.
Wow.
one point. I mean, termites. Those termites need to be protected. They need to be found and protected.
And it looks as if it's a thing now. This is not the first time. Remember the one associated with Jambi, even though they would give you all sorts of subsequent stories.
Snakes and monkeys.
How in
now,
the world?
termites have joined the league of...
They just can't do it.
Oh, you know, when you can't cry, you have to laugh. Take a look at what Daily Independent has on its front page. They have this one: travelers groan as economy class on international flight hits 1 million naira. Foreign airlines trapped funds rise to $600 million. That's the lead story right there. Economy class on international flights is up to $1 million naira. But no surprises when you think of the fact that even locally, you could be paying as much as 175,000, you know, thereabouts. It could get up to, I don't know, between 150 to 200 if you're not careful flying locally. So how much more if you have to go take a 6-hour flight, or maybe even just to Ghana? I don't know. You might want to see details somewhere on page 20 something of the paper. You also have a number of other stories here. IGP orders watertight security around schools, hospitals, infrastructure. They also have the story on misappropriation of 17.158 billion naira. NSITF fails to give acceptable explanation, blames termites. So they also have that story for you. I did say that it was juicy, but then changed my mind to scandalous. This is a scandalous story, and I hope that the Senate doesn't just leave it at this, you know, to say there needs to be a follow-up. There needs to be a follow-up because this certainly is not acceptable. 17.158 billion for a country that is struggling is not child's play. It's not chicken feed. So something needs to be done about where those monies went, and, you know,
this is unacceptable.
Yes,
as a matter
it's
of
not
fact.
acceptable. No, it's certainly not. Poor transaction dispute resolution hurting fintech's growth. So you have that story on the front page for you. I know that the Minister for Communications has been speaking in recent times, but perhaps he might want to take a look at this. Poor transaction dispute resolution hurting fintech's growth. Bad leadership liable for Nigeria's woes, not 1999 constitution. That's according to Obi. A lot going on right there. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
The Nigerian Tribune is also talking money this morning, and this one is a slightly different tangent. Look at it. FG borrows 19.3 trillion naira from CBN in 7 years. That story is on page 13 of the paper. Borrowing fueling inflation could reach 22.6 trillion naira by year end, according to experts. One wonders, is this the, I don't know, where, too many questions to ask. So I wish we could engage the CBN governor to ask him these questions. Where'd you get all this money from that you were borrowing the federal government? And are they also paying, what's that thing they pay on debt servicing? Is the federal government paying debt servicing on this 19.3 trillion naira from CBN in the past 7 years? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. So I mean, it's a borrow, right? They borrow the money. So anyway, but that's what you have on the as the lead story. Right above the nameplate, foreign carriers trapped funds in Nigeria hit $600 million. You heard that earlier. May jump to $1 billion by December. Stories on page 6. And right under the pictures on the front page, how insecurity, diesel and unavailability hamper $2 billion rail investments. Most certainly something troubling, of course, going by what Chimilin read on the front page of Daily Trust earlier. FG loses over 1 billion naira in 4 months on Abuja-Kaduna route. Find that story on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. On the back page, you have sports. Awoni scores first EPL goal, and Team Nigeria will inspire more girls. That's ascribed to Isibrume. Find the details on the back page of the Nigerian Tribune. And that brings us to the end of a look at the papers this morning. We are going to... So, Chimilin, what's new?
well, we should take one more, but we can't. So, well, yeah, just as you said, we'll go to break. I'll be back in just a moment with our first topic for today. Stay with us.
The emergence of the Boko Haram terrorists group, as well as bandits and kidnappers in Nigeria, considerably changed the country's security situation, leaving panic in the minds of the populace. These and other security challenges confronting the nation tend to stretch the deployment of our security agencies, resources, and national security apparatus. Owing to the dynamics of this crisis, the Office of the National Security Advisor revised the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy, which I endorsed in August 2016. This doctrine is aimed at bridging the gap created by extensive deployment of security services through fostering collaboration amongst ministries, departments, and agencies, thereby ensuring greater successes in tackling crisis, national crisis. To this end, I am delighted to state that this is a significant milestone in recognition of the need for our collective efforts towards achieving coordinated, effective, and efficient national crisis management. I therefore urge the Office of the National Security Advisor to continue to play the coordinator role among crisis response stakeholders to achieve greater successes. I equally wish to thank the British government for its collaboration in the development of the doctrine, as well as the United States government for its support. Today marks 136 days since the terrible and cowardly attack was carried out on fellow citizens who are going about their normal lives by some criminal elements in our society, leading to the loss of lives of both train crew members and passengers. I express my deepest and most heartfelt condolences for this loss to you and your families, and we join you as a nation in your plight. It remains our solemn commitment, as demonstrated publicly and behind the scenes, that we will ensure each person currently being held captive is safely returned home to their families. There have been several actions taken from the moment the incident occurred on the 28th of March by various government officials to not only ascertain the extent of fatality and damage caused by the actions of these terrorists, but also how to best bring succor to the affected families and ensure that such an occurrence never again takes place in our country. I have been informed that at last count, there remain about 31 people in the hands of the kidnappers, and our determination is to work towards returning these 31 people to their families.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Well, there are those who would wonder, is this just another one on the list? Well, Garba Shehu, who joins us this morning, as you saw earlier, he is a Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to the President. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr. Shehu. Well, there are those who would ask, as I said, is this just another one on the list of all the strategies, all the doctrines that we had before now? How is this going to make any significant difference?
This is an emergency think tank. Emergency think tank that would respond in a collective way to natural disasters, to acts of terrorism, for all situations, emergency. It's something different because the response to emergency terrorism had been characterized in the past by isolated and ad hoc actions. Sometimes major agencies, major responsibilities, security agencies, operating in silos. This idea is to bring everyone to the table. And there are models elsewhere. The National Security Advisor did say this was set up in collaboration with the United States of America and the British government. They have in the UK what they call the British Cabinet Office briefing room, the COBRA. It brings everyone, connected to, emergency response. They share intelligence, they plan actions together, and they provide communication on an hour-by-hour basis, right up to the level of, in our own case, the president of the country. So yes, this is different, and we're hoping it will make bring a lot of changes to in the country.
So, Mr. Shehu, will this solve the problem of lack of synergy between or amongst the security agencies? And to be clear on that, will it specify who takes responsibility for the chain of command when they're to respond to either a security report that is in the form of intelligence or an actual threat that is being carried out, such that there is no rivalry, no competition amongst the security agencies?
Yes. Well, absolutely, there is clear planning for the involvement of everyone in an emergency situation. Specific arrangements, if assuming that, God forbid, assuming that say maybe terrorists around, say, an institution like National Assembly, who will do what and at what speed. The document is so elaborate that it states this is how many minutes we expect. Police helicopter to be on the scene. Fire service, this is how much you need to be at a given crisis location. So yes, everyone has a defined role and they have specified targets when they are expected to respond to a given situation.
Which of the agencies or documents that we had before now is going to have to, go into extinction, so to speak, with the advent of this doctrine? There is the National Security Strategy, there is the National Counterterrorism Strategy, and so many other initiatives like that. Is this doctrine one that encapsulates all of them, or it's a completely different one? Help us understand how exactly this will work with what we already have.
This process began back in 2014, and it just got renewed attention under the present administration. Now, is it an offshoot, or the National Security Strategy, which was launched recently, anticipated this? So you can say that this is adjunct national security strategy. As we begin to implement it, these things will begin to hold. So it's part of the overall structure that exists. However, you would say that a strategy, as the COBRA, as they call it in the UK, had been moribund. We had in the State House what they call CC4, Crisis Communication Center, in the State House. It is not designed to do the kind of things that the new document, plans for security coordination, security in situations.
Mr. Shehu, there are those who would wonder just how promising and how certain can we be that this is going to make any significant difference, because we are never, as many people opine, we are not in a dearth. We don't have a dearth of laws, of rules, of regulations, of strategies, of productive and progressive documents. The challenge has always been in not just implementation, but sustainable implementation of those ideas and ideals. So again, one wonders how this is going to make any sustainable difference. The National Counterterrorism Strategy, for instance, is a product of as far back as 2016. The Counterterrorism Center dates back at least 2013, and yet it would seem that these issues continue to develop, metamorphose into one thing or the other over time. So how is this going to be how is it going to decisively deal with the issues that keep shape-shifting?
Well, quite unlike maybe previous engagements, which allow for excuses and people maybe to not carry out assigned responsibility. This is a document that is so well defined, so well detailed, that, as I said, it says, given a flood emergency or a terrorist action, this is the right action within the given time for each one government agency. It holds you to account. You must be responsible for that action which you are supposed to take, the specific. And for everyone, technical people, military, service chiefs, intelligence chiefs, everyone rising up to the level of the president and commander-in-chief, who, in given situations, invoke emergency powers when the situation is right. It's clearly spelled out, and I think there is no confusion who is to do what given time.
The assumption here then is the Office of the National Security Advisor that takes the lead. Is that correct?
Yes, the National Security Advisor is the lead agency.
Okay.
In terms of coordination.
Okay. But then that office, including that of the Counterterrorism Center, has operated in this same vein under the Office of the National Security Advisor. And there are those, and some of the things that you're saying now are contained in the document on the website of the CTC, .gov.ng, that these are the things that are supposed to happen under the Office of the National Security Advisor. Yet we have what we have. What was the problem?
No, but I'm sorry to say the this crisis response document has just been concluded and delivered. So it could not have existed earlier than now. If there were allusions to some of these undertakings in previously existing documents, then ill-defined. They probably were fuzzy and were not specific. But this one has a digital specification as to who does what time, and therefore failure can easily be established against anyone that does not do their own duty.
So why has it taken this long, Mr. Shehu? There are those who would also refer, you've referred to the Cobra in the UK. There are those who would also refer to the Homeland Security in the US. It took just one attack, just one incident, and Homeland Security came to be. It's taken us, what, so many years, 7 years of this administration, and now we're just having this. Why is that?
Well, let's celebrate the fact that we have it, and that it has taken international collaboration to produce these documents. Perhaps left alone, we may never have had it. So I think that the important thing is, yes, it's important, it's now birthed, and then we move forward from here.
But it has taken a lot of costs, Mr. Shehu. Cost lives, cost property, cost a lot of money, cost a lot of investments, cost a lot of valuable security personnel in various parts of the country. So again, why so late?
This strategy, I'm not sure it in any way tells you that there will be zero crime, zero flood, zero. It doesn't say that. So the thing is that it's a mechanism for mitigation and to forestall and avert. We are hoping it will minimize incidents. It's unlikely that there is any policy or any document that can be produced that completely eliminate incidents such as disasters.
Okay. Just to be clear, Mr. Shehu, you say based on this document, the Office of the National Security Advisor will take the lead. So if it's going to take the lead then, which security agent would take responsibility, in terms of deployment of action and execution of, tackling any security threat?
Okay, let me say that when saying National Security Advisor takes responsibility, this is insofar as the coordination is concerned. As I said, this strategy rises up to the level of the President and Commander-in-Chief. So he is involved, he's in the picture. And it says this is how he can be reached if this is the magnitude, of the crisis and the response that is required. And if he's needed to do a role, then that is when he has to do it. So all of the service chiefs, military heads, police, and all of them, they are all in the picture. And they all have specified responsibility at a given level.
Mr. Shehu, that doesn't quite answer the question. That doesn't answer the question. Would it be the Chief of Army Staff? Would it be the police? So which security agency will take the lead? We want specifics.
All of them will be on the table. All of them will be on the table. The National Security Advisor does the coordination, and the President of the country is in the picture.
That is still not sufficient explanation, Mr. Shehu, because there's a back and forth on, the confusion, especially when intelligence is got and it's supposed to be acted upon. There is the argument that, the service chiefs do not answer to the National Security Advisor. The police would say, oh, it's the responsibility of the police to take action when there's an internal insurrection. So is this document specific in terms of clearing the air on which agency takes responsibility for which nature of security threat?
Yes, I think it does.
So tell us what it states. We wish we had access to the document.
I will, if you have, in fact, when it was launched by the President required that there should be maximum publicity for it. So I will send you a link as we finish this program, and the hard copy will be sent to Channel Television. You will have it.
Well, Mr. Shehu, so you've talked about the fact that a sizable number of agencies are going to be part of the whole process in executing this document in order to achieve the objectives it set out to. And since it's a relatively new document, you may want to first of all tell us which agencies specifically are going to be involved and how these ministries, departments, and agencies that are going to be working, this document have been taken on board on it.
Well, the emergency response agencies are fairly well known to all of us. It's not just the police, the Army, Air Force, Navy, the secret services, the fire services, national emergency management agencies. At the technical level, at the cabinet level, which again you and I have both mentioned, the equivalent of the COBRA is a cabinet level also response team. So I believe people at lower positions than the heads of the agencies, technical people, will be seated. In fact, the existing mechanism in place in the State House is manned on a daily basis by representatives of various agencies. Now, they do their own, and then they escalate their own resolutions, intelligence that they have, levels of their own commanders, the service chiefs, and all of these response agencies. And then from there, if it is warranted, it rises to the cabinet level with the president of the country presiding.
Mr. Shehu, the NCMD is said to be a revised subset of the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy. And the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy has 5 work streams, which is to forestall, secure, identify, prepare, and implement. Is that to say that when there is intelligence, the NCMD does not state exactly or does not make provision for the execution of action to forestall?
No, it has. Actually, that mainly is why it is there. Because intelligence is anticipatory. And so therefore, when that information is made available, it is shared. And then if action is warranted, it is acted upon. So yes, you are correct. It's a revised offshoot or subsect of the national security strategy, and I guess it's a welcome, it's a welcome path of a major agency for security in the country.
That's to say the national counterterrorism strategy is obsolete, and this is the new document. Is that correct?
No. She just said, and I agreed with her, that is a subset. So the national security strategy covers all of the picture. Everyone is there. I mean, the entire security spectrum. But there are sections, subsections, and this is one such section.
Okay. Talking about crisis management, what kinds of crises are we talking about here? Does it include the kidnapping, the banditry, and other violent crimes that we're talking about, that we've been dealing with for years?
Yeah, of course it does. It does. Terrorism is there. It does include, as I said, natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and what have you, natural disasters. So yes, you are correct.
Okay. So the reason for asking that question, Mr. Shehu, is because all of these issues are more local than federal. So one wonders, what's the carry-along methodology with the states and the local government authorities across the country? Because unless that is there, I mean, operating this document from the center, from the capital city in Abuja, may not achieve the desired results or play the desired roles in a sustainable way. So what's the plan to carry along the states and the local government authorities?
Oh, you're absolutely correct there, because this new document actually envisages support for local emergencies, support for local emergency management. So nobody should go and lie back and think local government needs to do and it needs to do nothing, or state governments don't need to do anything. No, everyone would continue with their roles, but you need a big brother to help you. So that's what we're about. They will be interested in how it is carried about there, and how much support comes.
Well, we asked the question about ministries, departments, and agencies the other time, and you just gave an explanation. But we're trying to look at the practical workability of this, so it doesn't go the way of other documents that it is succeeding or that it is there to improve on. Has there been any conversation with state governments, for instance, from the Office of the National Security Advisor? Has there been any conversation with any body of local government authorities in the country to ensure that this document plays the role it is supposed to play? Or are you saying that this doctrine hasn't taken off?
No, I would assume safely. I will assume safely that such interaction will have taken place. Because, as a matter of fact, this document also has a role for private citizens and the private sector, because there could be roles that would be played by non-governmental institutions. So, was there a wide-scale consultation? So perhaps that's why it took all the time to produce. But it is inconceivable that this could have been produced without input stakeholders as important as the states are.
Mr. Shehu, I asked a question about carry-along methodology of other security agencies and state governments, particularly because most crimes are local, which is why I want to follow up by asking, does it also state a work strategy and methodology for state security networks that have been established by state governments to respond to major security breaches in most states of the Federation?
I would assume that is the case. I probably recommend a deeper reading of the document to your own selves, to all of us, so that we know that specific role is played out in the state.
So you're sure about the Army, the Air Force, Navy, the police, but you're not quite sure that it incorporates a work plan for state security agencies?
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, it says to you, if this incident happens, the time of response is counted in minutes. That if this incident should happen at so-so, police must have, say, 10 minutes, 5 minutes to be there. Fire service, 3, 4, 5, that's the kind of thing you have there. So it is detailed and specific. And I hope that we'll make available copies to just every citizen of the country so that they understand how these things work, because it is for all of us.
Well, Mr. Shehu, I'm still at a loss, because, I mean, if you are very certain of federal agencies being a part of this, and you're not quite sure that local authorities at the state and local government levels have been incorporated into this, but you just assumed, as you said, that already places a question on whether or not this document is going to be as effective as we want it to be.
No, but I can't sit before you here and pretend to you that I've read the entire book, which was launched only 3-4 days ago. I had had my reading, I had seen it, I had scanned through, I had spoken to key people, National Security Advisor, their officials, and all of these things. So I would recommend a deeper reading for you and for myself, so that we get a full understanding of what all that it contains.
Okay. Well, there is more more issues to raise on this when we return from this break. So. The Conversation with Mr. Garba Shehu continues with my colleagues in Abuja.
Well, yeah, thank you, Ayo. Well, Mr. Shehu, good morning. And just like every right-thinking person, we are interested in ensuring that things work, there's peace. And so when this document was launched, we had to approach very senior security personnel across different agencies to just find out what they think, because they will be the ones who will operationalize largely this document. And some of them thought, well, what they see from this document is that it deals with reacting or responding to incidents, as it were. And if I went going through it, they thought that the government had on its mind terrorism and banditry. Okay, I think we lost Mr. Shehu, so hopefully we'll try and see how we can get that connection back and ensure that at least government gets some sort of feedback on this matter, because, I mean, when they come up with these documents, they like to know that it will work and that they took the right decisions. And that's part of the reasons why we went to town on this one. So it'll be interesting to hear what they think, because, I mean, it was just last week where we looked at this matter, how the Counterterrorism Prevention Agency, the law actually of 2022 was, I mean, we're waiting to see why it's taking us so long. Little did we know that this was going to be launched. Even afterwards, they thought there's still a question mark, some aspects that are missing in terms of analyzing the intelligence, quote unquote, because they thought what they say is intelligence is largely information which is not analyzed. And if it were to be analyzed, they like to see different agencies sit together and come up with a central strategy to approach it. Thereafter, it can then be called proper intelligence. So we don't know if that happens.
Well, people always say that, well, not people, but I mean, what the security experts always say is that information is not intelligence unless it is actionable and it is specific. So unless you're able to make sense of it, it remains what it is. It's just information. If you say, oh, there's going to be an attack where, what time, do you know by who, etc. You know, those are the kinds of things that eventually make it intelligence that is actionable. But it will be interesting to see how this brings all these other agencies together. Yeah. It's taken us this long to be able to come up with this, as Buki mentioned in her question. I think it was Buki or Ayo. Ayo most likely. 7 years is a long time in this administration to have come up with this. I'm sure that when the National Counterterrorism Act was enacted, maybe that's what people thought was going to be this. But even that needed, you know, it was a body of laws talking about what will constitute terrorism, etc., and what needed to be done. But even that needed an agency to be able to prosecute it. You have to ask, who has the prosecutorial powers for counterterrorism? Is it the DSS? Is it the military? We understand doesn't have that. The police certainly should have a lead role. But we all know that the police has been dealing with capacity issues in recent times, and we haven't quite strengthened the hand of the police enough to be able to handle a lot of things that have to do with internal security. So were they thinking of the police? Were they thinking of the DSS, etc.? And then who really takes the lead? I think you were highlighting the fact that this is dealing with incidences. When it comes to intelligence gathering, for instance, where is that going to happen? But Chamberlain, I'll throw it back to you to quickly put your question across.
Well, Mr. Shehu, we lost you for a bit, and so good to know that you're back. But we were just talking about some of the feedback that top security personnel who are going to largely carry out or execute this document, the feedback that they gave to us when we approached them. Some of them did say that the document deals with responding or reacting to incidences or crisis. And from what they saw with this document, they thought that while the government was developing the documents, they had on its mind terrorism and banditry. And that's why there's that doctrine, which is a subset of NAC test. But what they say we need to do is that in addition to this document, we need a national crisis prevention policy and/or strategy for a national community safety policy strategy, such that all those agencies can be at the same table and take certain actions working together. Do you think this document can do that?
From my own understanding, which is, I want to say again, quite a superficial one. One, it is envisaged that there will be inter-agency collaboration. So what this means is that the agencies of government that are responsible for intelligence gathering would be seated in the same room with those agencies of government that carry out actions. Not only that, it is envisaged that this new, organization or plan would undertake stress analysis. And when you do stress analysis, it presupposes that you probably are anticipating, you're looking at possibilities of crisis in given areas, and you are proposing what to do. And the key action points, very clearly stated, include, of course, that there is a communication component. This of course captures all the concerns about intelligence gathering, dissemination, sharing of information, and all of that. And there's also the action component. So there's a need to do a preemptive strike or to do a counter strike. That is so I have a feeling that, as I said to Ayo earlier on, we probably need to pay attention, read all of the document, and to understand it, the full implications of what it contains. I guess these concerns your consultants or advisors are suggesting, I guess, are sufficiently addressed by the document.
Let me ask, how is it going to make a difference with the kidnapped victims along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway, I beg your pardon, the Kaduna-Abuja train attack? We know that some of the victims are still in captivity. You have granted an interview. I think that interview was granted in Hausa, and it's been widely translated, showing government's efforts, and it looks like there was a lot that went on behind the scenes, and there was a break of trust somewhere. But how will a document like this make a difference in being able to get back those who still remain within the custody of the bandits?
Interagency collaboration, interagency action. So much is happening in the last few days and weeks since the president, read the Riot Act to the service chiefs. It's very clear that new strategies are already in place. New initiatives, new thinking is being brought to all of the things concerning those captives and all of the issues concerning security, banditry, terrorism, kidnapping in those other areas. The military have done changes of leading commanders in the frontline areas. As we have seen, they are putting together formidable, fighting forces. They've been trained for some time.
Solutions like this, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Shehu. Solutions like this usually come to the fore as a result of something. Maybe they're meant to cure something. Did we notice that interagency cooperation was missing? Is that why we have not been able to successfully rescue the people who have been kidnapped by this terrorist? That's one. And I was also hoping that you would speak to the interview which you granted that has gone widely translated. Did you really give the backstory in that interview? Were those your words?
Well, they were my words, all right. And there are two ways that a rescue of that nature can be done. Either through negotiation, non-kinetic, or through the use of weapons, lethal force, as the president said he was not inclined to do. So if you choose to use the lethal force, you must be prepared for also consequences that follow, included unintended consequences. So if you are asking me whether there was no collaboration of this sort, I would say that even within the army, for instance, I think they had been overstretched over the entire landscape of the country. I was going to say, before you cut me, that, for instance, they have trained special fighting forces. The special forces have been scattered in many parts of the country, in south, in the northeast, north central areas, and many crisis areas. And what they're doing now is they're bringing all of them together into brigade command. In fact, they have brought them together, into brigade formations. 8 divisions in Sokoto, 1 division in Kaduna, and the effect is already being felt on the ground. The use of air power enormously, successful, decimating many of them. So we're getting somewhere. We are at a point where we have reached a turning point in this, and I believe that with support of fellow
all right, Mr. Shehu, just one more thing before you go. Let's just put this in so that we can wrap up and move on to the next item here, as quickly as possible if you can. After the Kuje jailbreak, the House of Reps, they had a session, and therein the Speaker was talking about how there were 44 security reports, intelligence reports about that attack from the DSS, and no action was taken. Has that come to the attention of the President?
I think it is wrong to say no action has been taken. My understanding is that the military, for instance, is already court-martialing some of the elements. So if there was no willingness to fight or to resist, as was seen, consequences will follow.
All right, then, Mr. Gabashew, we do thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
I have told the candidates, you will lose this election, you will win this election because of people around you. Anybody who knows me knows too well. If I was going to court, I would have gone to court within 2 weeks after the primaries, because it is a pre-election matter. And after 2 weeks, you can't go to court. The legal advisor of the party called me and told me he knows that there's a mischief going on, that he knows me very well. If I'm going to court, it's not those kind of lawyers I would have used, and I don't even know the lawyers. But I want to tell the candidate, it is the candidates group that are doing all these things. Let the world hear. They are the ones plotting all these things, thinking that they will spoil my name. You cannot. Yesterday they said, I removed all PDP flags in River State Government House. We are supposed to be talking about how you win an election. It's not about this rent seekers around people. They are not doing him any favor. But those of you who are plotting and put my name that I went to court, for you to come out now to say, oh, who came to court, shame will be on you. Shame will be on all of you. Tell them, shame, shame, shame.
Well, let's have a conversation on that, as you have seen, with Chief Dewale Momodu, who is former presidential aspirant of the PDP, and he is our colleague in the media, publisher Ovation Magazine. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me.
I know you know that this is getting, let me use a nice word, interesting. Everyone is wondering what exactly is happening within the PDP at a time when it should actually be playing the lead role as the lead opposition party. It is immersed in its own internal crisis. What do you make of this? First as a journalist and then as a politician.
Well, as a journalist, I'm not surprised. We have a presidential election. In Nigeria, it's a game of almost winner takes all. So the stakes are very high. So there will be quite a number of fisticuffs here and there. If you go into APC, they have their own crisis. You go into the other parties, they have their crisis. In PDP, it's unfortunate that we're yet to settle down after the fallouts from our primary. Of course, we just played a video of the governor of Rivers State, a man we call governor of governors. He's been one of the best governors, if you ask me, in Nigeria, if not the best. But unfortunately, I don't know how come my party and my candidate, Atiku Abubakar, has not been able to pacify him. Maybe there is more than meets the eye. But from my own personal investigation as a journalist, I've been told that last year, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar met with Governor Wike and wanted them to run a joint ticket, and an agreement was reached. And thereafter, Governor Wike decided that he is running on his own because of the party constitution, which normally would have ceded power to the South. After 8 years of Buhari, I mean, we all expected that power would come to the South. That's one of the reasons I contested. But I knew as far back as March this year that Governor Wike was interested. They had not told anybody then. I'd been with him in Port Harcourt. And if I stayed with him in Port Harcourt more than in Lagos, because we were doing some work with him, just like Channels TV. You know, we call him Mr. Projects. And he's been launching projects after projects. So I sent him a letter and I copied two people, Chief Michael Zekome, SAN. I copied the immediate past Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Mohamed Adoke, in the letter. I said, I know you want to run to be president of Nigeria. I did the same thing as far back as 1991 with Chief M.K. Abiola. I can read. One of the talents I have is I can read the mood around me. So I knew Governor Wike was interested, but he didn't tell anybody. He kept it close to his chest. And I advised him. I said, as a Democrat, I'm not going to ask you not to run, but from the feelers I'm getting around, you are going to have a lot of resistance. You have a lot of enemies who will pretend to be your friends. Wherever there is money, wherever there is power, you will see people pretend. But I'm one person that I will advise you, no matter how big you are, from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to Governor Wike, I always intervene at such moments. So I told him, I said, please have your option B. It is good that you are fighting for power to return to the South, but you may not be the sole beneficiary. And I pleaded with him. I said, I'm running. I'm your friend. I'm your brother. I'm running. If you support me, I'm sure we will get it. And I went to the extent of even announcing a kind of shadow cabinet in advance. It's something that fascinates me about England, where you have an idea of who becomes what. For me, if you give Governor Wike an opportunity to fix electricity in Nigeria, we do it. If you give him the opportunity to fix our roads, he will fix it. But what everybody says about him is that he is too volatile. So when I told him that, he got angry. That what do they mean that he is volatile and all that? So that is the excuse people use. You see, presidency has a lot to do with your temper and temperament.
But Mr. Momodu, it would seem as if these painstaking efforts to appease Governor Wike is an acknowledgement by the leading opposition party that we can't move on without him.
No, it's not that they can't move on without him. It shows how important he is in the equation of things in Nigeria as it stands. As I told you, if you have a man who is your best governor, across board, across party lines, Wike stands out as a fantastic performer. And leadership is about performance. So today, the fear of Wike is the beginning of wisdom in PDP. There is no question about that.
So by PDP's calculations, if Governor Wike is not appeased, how many states in the southwest, southeast, south rather, will the PDP lose in the presidential election?
I'm not sure PDP will lose any state in the south-south. And I'll tell you why. The vice president, the vice presidential candidate is from the south-south. Governor Wike would expect that his candidate for governorship, who is running on the platform of PDP, will win. So if you destroy PDP, so how will his candidate then win the gubernatorial election? So it's a catch-22 situation for him, but he's very smart. He knows the game he's playing. You know, what he wants to do is to force a deal with the party. That's my belief. That's my own reading of the situation. He is a very smart politician. I'm sure eventually the party will reach a deal with him. If I were the candidate, I told you just now, I already offered him, if I was the candidate, that Governor Wike, if you support me, I will do for you what President Buhari did for Fashola. Fashola had 3 portfolios at a time in Nigeria. So if you don't get what you want, for me, Fashola is even almost more important than the office of the vice president. So what I will advise Alhaji Atiku Abubakar to do today is to sit down one-on-one, no other person, with Governor Wike and agree on deliverables. If possible, sign an agreement.
But one of the issues that has played up until now is the entire party structure. Well, maybe I should even ask you this. As far as you are concerned, from what you can see, what exactly is the issue in contention here? You've talked about the North-South issue, the North-South rotation. There are those who are wondering the chairman of the party ought to have resigned. There are those who are saying maybe the vice presidency should have presidential candidates should have gone to someone else as opposed to Dr. Okowa. For you, and don't also forget that the issues of internal crisis in the party predates the primaries. There's so many other issues at the center and in the various, some states of the federation in the PDP. So for you, what exactly is the issue, if there is a central issue?
One, Governor Wike believes the party should have respected our zoning principle or formula, or whatever you want to call it. Number 2, he believes that that zoning would have favored a southern candidate. 3, he believes that of all the southern aspirants, he is the one who has the capacity to deliver victory to the party. Then number 4, initially, there have been videos of Governor Wike saying he can't be vice president to anybody. But I think members of his group were able to persuade him that, look, you've labored too much for this party, you've made so much contribution, why don't you accept number 2? And I heard there were 3 names on the list that was given to the presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and Wike's name was on that list. I believe he thinks he should have been the one to make that vice presidential candidate. Which
is why I want to ask, because your insider information that you led with when you started your commentary was that ahead of the presidential primaries, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar approached Governor Wike and said, let us run a joint ticket. But Governor Wike said, no, I would rather run on my own. So when they were to present names to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar to choose a vice presidential candidate, why didn't he go with Governor Wike, who was the preferred of that committee?
I think by then, some things had changed. That's, again, according to my own investigation. Remember, and this is one of the problems, the manner that Governor Tambuwa stepped down for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Governor Wike, was miffed that, look, we had passed that stage. No one was supposed to be allowed to go back to the podium to make an announcement and tell the delegates who to vote for. That was part of the problem. But again, if Alhaji Atiku Abubakar had picked Governor Wike as VP, some people in his own circle of influence were of the opinion that it would be a spite on Tambuwa, who stepped down, because Wike would have lost nothing. A vice president is almost as good as a president anywhere in the world. In the absence of the president, the vice president. So a lot of people were feeling that, look, it would have been a slap on Governor Tambuwa, who stepped down for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar.
Well, the questions are not just going to go away, because there are too many issues to raise with you, and of course my colleagues in Abuja will also want to join us. But we'll take more when we return from this break. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Good morning, Mr. Mamadou. Now, in trying to solve problems, they need to understand where it went wrong. Perhaps that will give them an inkling in terms of how to approach it. Now, there's been there's a reconciliatory committee that's been set up now to see how they can address this matter. But what do you think went wrong between River State Governor and the national chairman of the party? Because at the time they appeared cordial. There were images everywhere, how they had that rapport. But all of a sudden, things went south. How did that happen?
Well, you know, normally, in a normal situation, if the presidential candidate is from the north, then the national chairman would be from the south. But in this case, you have the presidential candidate from the north, and then you have the national chairman also from the north. So what the Wike camp is saying is that this is unfair, this is unfortunate, and this should not stand. And that's why they were asking that the national chairman would have to go. So it's not about cordiality. Of course, that cordiality broke down the moment, number one, the party jettisoned the zoning formula of the party and then settled for a northern candidate. It's normal that people will be aggrieved, but it is about crisis management. As I said, if I were in the shoes of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, I will meet with Governor Wike one-on-one, face-to-face. No third party, and let them iron out their differences, because we're dissipating so much energy. There are other presidential aspirants who are complaining that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has never reached out to them, that is waiting for them to approach him. I think I'm using this platform to appeal to our candidate that if we must win next year's election, he must work harder at reaching out to everybody. Everyone counts. Because the election of next year is going to be like no other. For the first time, we are going to have two mainstream political parties being challenged by a formidable third force. So every vote will be very important. Every stakeholder must be reached out to.
You know, I'm trying to struggle to see how I can avoid making this a double-barrel question. So the thing is, how much time do you think the PDP has to address this problem, this challenge, before they move on to the next step? And what options do you think will be there for the governor? Because we've seen different, while there are speculations that he could opt out and go to the APC, persons in APC in Rivers State are leaving APC and joining the PDP. So what should, first tell us, how much time do you think they have? What options will be there for the Rivers State governor?
For me, Governor Wike is a very principled man. He has vowed repeatedly, if there is one thing he has been consistent about, it is his love for PDP. I believe he will not leave PDP. What he is doing is a mind game. He's playing a mind game, and he's very good at it. He keeps them guessing. He's a very smart human being. And as I said, I've interacted with him long enough to know him now. He's a principled man. If he goes to APC, what shall it profit him? You know, even in Southwest, we just won Osun State. Nobody thought we would be able to win Osun State. And I congratulate my good friend, Senator Ademola Nuruddin Adeleke, for that feat. But you can see the way the, party leadership of PDP all came together and we were able to dislodge APC in Osun State. This tells you that if PDP can work together, because APC, they've messed up Nigeria spectacularly. There is no question about that. So we are the ones even still align them.
What?
Yes. Please go on.
What does the Rivers State governor have to lose if he doesn't throw his weight behind your party candidate?
He may lose his governorship candidate because you can't come to me in the presidential election and say, don't vote for Atiku. And then the following week, you come back to me and say, vote for my candidate in PDP. I mean, that would be a very dangerous game to play. And I know he's smarter than that. Governor Wike is not a foolish man who will take foolish. He is angry, legitimately angry. There are many people who are angry in the party. And that's why I'm saying it boldly here, that the party must do everything possible. You see, because there is this attitude. Now they are worrying about Governor Wike, but there are others in the party they should worry about as well. And they are very important. The next election is not going to be an easy one for APC.
Good morning, Mr. Momodu.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Are you one of them? Are you one of those whom they should worry about?
No, they shouldn't worry about me too much. I'm a part-time politician. I'm not a career politician. I'm back at Ovation, working at Ovation. But if they need me, yes, they will reach out to me and I'll do what I can. I supported Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and former Governor Peter Obi in 2019. I wasn't a member of PDP. So I operate without being in a party. When I supported Buhari in 2015, I wasn't a member of APC. So I'm a part-time politician, but I know there are a lot of disgruntled elements who will not speak up, and they must reach out to them. If they want their names, they can ask me, I'll tell them.
Well, we are interested, since you have said that, there are a lot of other disgruntled people. Would you like to give us hints?
The hint is that there are a lot of presidential aspirants who felt that immediately after the primary, the party was going to bring them together under one umbrella so that they can all collectively work for the candidate. But everybody is roaming around like orphans right now. That's the truth. A lot of Our other aspirants are roaming like orphans. Not all of them have Ovation International to go back to. So I'm back at work. I'm traveling all over the world. I just came into Nigeria yesterday. So, but I'm serious. I've met with Senator Dino Melaye. He came to see me in London the other day. And there are other people talking to me who are also very close to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And I've been telling them between us that, look, there is so much work to be done, and they shouldn't take it for granted that it's going to be easy. This time around, every stakeholder must be accommodated, beginning with Governor Nyesom Wike.
Well, I'm just trying to put a face to the other presidential aspirants. And when I mean presidential aspirants, I'm also talking about, I don't know whether it matters whether or not people were able to secure votes on that day or not. Do you think that this is regardless of whether or not they got votes from the delegates on that day?
You see, I don't want to wash our dirty linen in public. Getting votes does not matter from delegates. That's not a general election. I didn't get any votes. And as I said at the end of the exercise, I said I paid for nothing and I got nothing. And so that is the same thing I'm going to tell you today. I paid for nothing, so I didn't have the money to match. But in terms of influence, and I'm not being immodest, a lot of us have the wherewithal to influence the thinking of the people. There are people who have the credibility that will influence a lot of people, especially the young ones. Every day they call me, what's going on? Which direction should we go? So can you tell us the antecedent? Because these days people don't even know the history of some of our politicians. Half of the governors that we all pay homage to are just known within their own states. If I ask you to name 36 governors in Nigeria right now, even as a journalist, you will struggle. So there are global players in the party. There are intellectuals. If you look at America, no candidate will joke with the intellectuals around. Even the president of America defers to the intellectuals. But in political parties in Nigeria, we pay so much attention only to the career politicians. So I am advising my party, reach out to the intellectuals because they can give you the formula. I've been involved in presidential campaigns now for nearly 30 years, since 1993. And I know what it takes. That's why a lot of people still accuse me of being one of those who brought Buhari to power. So if I had the influence in 2015, almost 8 years ago, to do a lot of work for Buhari, then it tells you that 7 years after, I've grown in experience and in exposure, and I know what our candidate needs. So I pray that we do the needful so that our party does not waste this opportunity. APC does not deserve to come back to power.
Well, a committee has now been constituted, from what we understand. Governor Amadu Fintiri of Adamawa will be heading that, from what we hear. What he has also confirmed. The question for me will be, how much success do you think that this committee will be able to get?
It depends on how broad-based the umbrella is. But if it is just to pacify a few big people, the problems will not have been solved. I am telling you, even as an aspirant, there were days before our elections that you will receive a text message. A meeting of the presidential aspirants will be holding in a period, and you get there, nobody is there, and nobody comes back to you to say why some. So the big people will be reached to say, oh, well, we've cancelled, but all the other smaller, so-called smaller, will not be reached out to. I am telling you, you cannot practice such discrimination in a party and expect to have peace. Everybody counts in this election. So Governor Fintiri is a gentleman that I know and I respect, and I pray that he will work with a broad-based coalition of party faithfuls. I'm a loyal party man. And that is why even last weekend you could see my intervention when I pleaded with Governor Wike that please sheath your sword. You don't need all this stress. Don't take it too far. There is another tomorrow.
Now, if I could move with a little brother to the political parties, you've talked about a formidable third force, but there are those who are also factoring in the NNPP. So if you could look ahead and talk about the forthcoming 2023 presidential elections, we haven't had it this way before with at least 3 or 4 persons that are being prominently talked about. What do you see playing out? Because some think at the end of the day, if things continue this way, we may just have ourselves a runoff. What do you think?
Well, we'll be lucky to get away with a runoff. I hope it's nothing much worse. I've read the interventions of Chief Afe Babalola talking about an interim government. I've read the interventions of Mr. Femi Falana. We may be playing with crisis if we're not careful. For me, as a political analyst and as a journalist, I believe that the 2 mainstream political parties, APC and PDP, are still in the lead. As I said, there is a challenger, a very, very powerful challenger in the Labour Party. It remains to be seen how far they will be able to galvanize the people. But let me say very quickly, there are 3 main factors that will determine the winner. The race card, as they call it in America, we call it ethnicity here, is going to be a major factor. Anybody with wishful thinking can say, oh, it doesn't matter, it will matter. Religion, and then the whiff, what James Ali Chase called the whiff of money. Those 3, because you need a lot of money to mobilize your agents nationwide. We saw what happened in Osun State. Only 2 mainstream political parties were able to mobilize enough resources for their agents. Because if your agents are not present, it's going to be difficult. The third force will have to invest also in other lower candidates. Let me put it in inverted commas. The lower candidates, they must work to have senators, they must work to have members House of Reps, they must have members House of Assembly, they must have others like that, so that their party candidates can then have what I call the foot soldiers. You need foot soldiers. It's not enough for people to say, yes, I'm supporting A and B. There are structural arrangements to it. I like to call it, there is method to madness in Nigeria. So, but as of today, the 2 mainstream political parties are sitting pretty. I don't think they are afraid yet. PDP has a very good chance, trust me. With a vice presidential candidate coming from the South-South, it can be assumed that we are going to have the South-South. Labour Party will do very well, especially in the South. I don't know about the North. I have not really followed their progress in the North yet, but I can see the movement is sweeping across. APC, of course, has an edge with about 22 governors or thereabouts, so which means they already have the structures, but those structures may be weakened. I mean, like I said, APC just lost Osun State. That should embolden PDP that they can actually take on APC.
But wouldn't that be something you said earlier about, Governor Wike having having the need to depend on the PDP because, I mean, otherwise his own anointed candidate, so to speak, would not, have his way. Don't forget that Segun Mimiko became governor, on the platform of a relatively unknown party at the time. Don't also forget that even, the presidential candidate of the APC changed party. Literally, some would say retired some political party and created his own, and became governor on the platform of a completely new political party. So, looking at those things, when he was governor in 2003. So, looking at those things, wouldn't you say there could be some upsets?
Oh, there's no question about that. But what I'm saying, a state is different from the national. In a state, you have fewer constituents to deal with. At the national level, you are going to deal with God knows how many ethnic nationalities. And even in America, race is a factor. You have those who are white supremacists, you have those who are liberal, and you have... So in Nigeria, trust me, you will see that on the day of election, a lot of that will come into play. There are those who will say, look, Tinubu, whatever you want to say about him, he's a Yoruba man, he's a Southerner, we want power in the South, we're going to vote for Tinubu.
You say that Governor Wike is a principled man. So should we believe him when he says that he hasn't instituted a lawsuit?
No, I don't believe. If he did, he will announce it. Oh, Governor Wike, he is not one man to hide behind one finger. But he did.
But our investigations prove to the contrary, because sources say, the lawyers say they have been paid and they're going ahead with the suit.
No, let me tell you. I also read yesterday that there is a man who was one of our aspirants. I read it in the papers yesterday, Undukwe, that he was the one who is there. It's possible that some people will fund him behind, but I am saying, if Wike wanted to, and Wike said something technical, which maybe you missed, that you cannot sue after 2 weeks. He said it with his own mouth. Yeah. So
just 30 seconds, yeah. Chief Mahmoud. You've spoken to what the PDP candidate should do. You've spoken to what Governor Wike should do. But you've not spoken to what the PDP, which will fly the colors, should do.
No, I've spoken to it. I mean, Marquez spoke about Governor Fintri, trying to reconcile people in the party. That's the party. It's on behalf of the party. What the party needs is unity. With unity, we can win any election. We saw it in Osun. Osun was a good test case for us. And Senator Demola Adeleke, nobody gave him a chance. I know so many of our friends said, no, it's not possible. Technically, Tinubu is from Osun State, from Iragbiji. The governor is very close to Tinubu. All the governors of APC were behind the governor of Osun State. Yes, we defeated them. Okay. It's the mood. You see, what PDP needs to do today is to create the same mood we created in Osun. We created the mood of possibilities.
Okay. Well, we are looking forward to that mood. Yeah. Anything else that this system needs to get it done. Chief Dele Momodu, former presidential aspirant, People's Democratic Party, PDP, and publisher and Chief Executive Officer, Ovation International. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, some conversation from you, your contribution to the program today. Let's start with you, Markwe.
Well, let's see what we have. This first one is from Henry Okeke. I think it's an email. Says, talking about national security, he says establishment of a central agency to facilitate interagency collaborations can be effective at this time. The central agency will effectively foster collaboration, cooperation, and coordination of security agencies. He's optimistic.
Well, Professor Diana says, let's abstain from ignoble criticism. Ignoble? About the timing of this security doctrine. All hands must be on deck, including all security agencies that work together for comprehensive purposes in exterminating these outlaws, terrorists, and renegades.
Well, this one is from VB Obe, who says it will be more reasonable if the federal government does not succumb to pressure by revealing their plans of intelligence to the public, because showing results is better off than showing efforts which may not produce desired results.
Agree more. And this one is from Festus Akimboyewa. He says the security of Nigerians is the chief responsibility of government. Sadly, FG has not done well in responding to insecurity that require coordination, action, direction and expertise. The president should get off the back seat and sit up front. Nigerians want to see action.
Not just in a movie, but in our real lives. Well, that's the show today. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day and week. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Please, if you're driving here in Abuja, please drive carefully. I believe the roads might be slippery this morning. It's been raining since forever. And do stay warm. Do have a good one. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'll take note of that right away. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.